I'm on the drugs right now. I can use your love right now. With this steady trying to tear me down.
Oh shit! All right, we might have to start. All right, so Texas passes bill banning schools from acquiring teaching critical race theory. I got more shit to read because it gets weirder and weirder. The Texas Senate on Saturday passed legislation that would ban schools from requiring staff to discuss or teach critical race theory. The legislation passed the state's lower chamber on May 11th, but the state house will have to approve it again after changes were made in the state Senate, according to KXAN. Critical race theory holds that racism is systematic and has been present in institutions including the law, the economy, and schooling since the nation's founding. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said about the passage of the bill, House Bill 3979 makes certain that critical race philosophies, including the 1619 founding myth, are removed from our school curriculum statewide. When parents send their children to school, they want their students to learn critical thinking without being indoctrinated with misinformation, charging that America and our Constitution are rooted in racism. And he also added, Texans roundly reject the woke philosophies that espouse that one race or sex is better than another and that someone by virtue of their race or sex is innately racist, oppressive, or sexist, he added. The bill requires teachers to talk about race relations and how they shape history and look at viewpoints from, in quotes, from diverse and contending perspectives without giving deference to any one perspective. However, critics, including Democrats and education advocates, say the bill is a step in the wrong direction.
Oh, okay. So they're suffering from dementia, right? These are just delusions, right?
What they talking about? Yeah, sounds like it.
So I don't understand how like white people just can't admit that they benefit from racism. Like as a man, I could say I benefit from like, what's the word I'm looking for? Patriarchy and shit. What? Like patriarchy and shit. But like, why can't they just fucking admit it? Like, it doesn't make you a bad person inherently just because you benefit from it. But like acting like it doesn't exist, like, yeah, that's some shame, bro.
That's it's just a crazy like agenda to be pushing. Like, this is the bill that needed to be passed, and the fact that it got passed. Like, who brought this shit up? Hey, like, who just brought that to the table? Like, yo, we need to stop teaching about systematic oppression and racism in the country and stop making it seem like this country is rooted in racism. Like, fam, all the people that wrote the Constitution had slaves. Like, what are we talking about? Like,
the 3/5 compromise was in the fucking Constitution.
Yeah, are you kidding? Yeah, you 3/5 of a man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what? Based on what are we basing that off of? That this is not true. That it's misinformation. That it's this woke shit. Like, bro, whether you're on the woke shit or not, like, fam, it is what it is. Them niggas had slaves. Slavery is in the Constitution. The 3/5 compromise and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then we have, bro, look at the fucking system. There are so many documented things of the system being oppressive and having racism to it. Look at the first fucking jail bill. Like, you could go to any point in history and look at things that were systematically put in place. Look at the ghettos. Look at how redlining. Like, bro, what are we talking about? Like, I sound dumb because I'm talking about shit we've already talked about like so many times. Like, this shit is so basic.
Just read a book. I could just credit everything they just fucking said.
You know, like them learning in school, like if they have the old history books and then you're also taking a critical race theory, I think that those two conflict. It's like, what if it's like something like, damn, we don't want to rewrite the books, some shit like that.
Well, they've been teaching critical race theory. It's just that now they're banning it. They're saying you can no longer talk about critical race. Like, basically, you cannot acknowledge systematic racism.
And I see that. Why that they would do that is because, like, okay, you're learning about history, and then you're going into your next class and they're teaching you about critical race theory, and you're like, whoa, but the book said this. Yeah. And then you're just, as a kid, it's like, how am I supposed to learn? Like, I'm so conflicted. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that it's not, like, they should ban it. I'm just saying that this is probably the reason why it's probably looking like that too.
Wait, so what? So if you put it in a sentence, what's the reason you're saying that they may be banning these things? I'm getting lost.
I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it's that idea of like, okay, rewriting the books.
But yeah, that's basically what they're saying. We're gonna rewrite the books so that this is banned. So like that's the whole premise of what they're doing. This stuff is in historical stuff like slavery and stuff like that is in textbooks, and they're saying we're no longer going to let teachers talk about what has already been talked about in the past. We're banning it.
What the fuck? They're talking about slavery itself. They're not gonna put that in the books.
I think you're just talking about critical race theory.
Because critical race theory was.
I'm reading it right now.
See, I should know this because I studied this shit in college, but you know.
Critical race theory holds that racism is systematic and has been present in institutions including the law, the economy, and schooling since the nation's founding.
Yeah, which is like a fact. Like it's not even a theory. Like it's just, you know.
And they're saying we don't want that to be taught to kids. We don't want them. He basically, I mean, exactly what he pretty clearly like said what he.
It's
House
like,
Bill 379 makes certain that critical race philosophies, including the 1619 founding myth, are removed from our school curriculum statewide. When parents send their children to school, they want their students to learn critical thinking without being indoctrinated with misinformation charging that America or our Constitution are rooted in racism.
see, Texas on some bullshit because aren't they the same state who like banned the teaching of
Slavery?
like evolution?
Oh, you're probably right. I heard about they banned the use of the word slavery. They made it indentured servants.
On like a legal type shit, you can't really like. Okay, here's racism: the belief that race accounts for differences in human character or ability, and that a particular race is superior to others. Right? Even though we know the ramifications and the how it is institutionalized, like or. You know, like you said, it's built into the Constitution. Racism, the idea of, well, not even racism, but by the definition of it, it doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Like, what I guess whatever they're arguing for. You feel me? Like,
Yeah.
What do you mean? You just be
Okay.
saying yeah, Dale. I'm gonna start having you repeat
cut
back.
on, you cut
No,
on.
I'm trying to understand. I'll be like this new Dale. Yeah.
I mean,
boss.
in the head like, yeah.
Are we talking or not? Like I'm
Okay.
like, hold on.
Like, you
what
know
are
what
you
I'm
talking
guess
about?
so.
yeah,
the
you ain't
critical
no
race-
fucking money. Yeah.
yeah, so look, I guess the critical race theorists, what they're trying to do is prove that our economics, all these different areas of activity or areas of interaction with humans in America specifically, has racism attached to it, right? Economics, what they say, law, what else?
They said holds that racism is systematic and has been present, and it just says present though.
Okay.
In
present.
institutions including law, that's the thing. Like, though maybe it's the way it's written, but like it's just like it's not even anything I could try to swing to the other side because it's like it's present. Oh, I can't really deny that. Like, yeah, it's definitely present.
But there is no law that really says that we as this race believe that we are different, or because I'm reading the definition, right? The belief that race accounts for differences in human character or ability, and that a particular race is superior to others. Can you say that there's a racist law based on that definition? That specifically lays out and saying I as a white person can now dominate as you over a black person because I feel that I am superior and this law states that? Or are there laws that let's say like you said, redlining. We're gonna sell to an Irish family. That's not racist.
What'd you say?
I'm saying, like, let's say you were selling a house, right? What they would do is instead of selling to black people when they were moving in, they would say we only sell to Irish families.
Yeah.
We're keeping it in the lineage or whatever that case is. So when you say that, you're not saying no blacks, but you're pretty much saying how many black Irish people are you gonna find? You know, like that in itself can be considered racist, but that by the definition of racism, that law is, or any law that we really have, I can't say is racist.
But you
the
think
Constitution, that's okay. But if it goes further, I'm just saying, just looking at that, kind of like a lawyer, right? Like you can't
No,
really.
I'm trying to understand. That's
Yeah.
why, because what's your full picture of it? Because you're saying that certain, like, there's no specific law that like has a rate. I mean, yeah, I've never seen a law that like blatantly said like blacks can't do this, but the way laws are enforced, certain things that have been passed in certain neighborhoods, the reason that blacks and brown people are generally the ones in these ghettos and stuff like that. Like,
Right.
I feel like that's definitely systematic. The way like the housing income shit works is
Right.
systematic, but it's not like blatantly saying it. But like if we're talking about is it present, like shit's gotta be. I mean, even like, bro, how are it's misinformation charging that America and our Constitution are rooted in racism, like, and like if you just getting the definition of racism, it's like it has to be rooted in racism, like it just based on what they fucking put in the Constitution and the people that wrote it, and the laws that came after that, and like the prison fucking bills and the why am I being stupid? What's it called? Oh, the Jim Crow laws. Oh, mother. Okay, those are laws, but those are rare. Because
Okay,
most laws,
so
they won't say fuck you to your face. They'll just enforce them a certain way.
And this is only based on like America and its constitution. Like if they're still gonna teach about like world history and shit, why won't they talk about like India and like Britain and stuff like that? Like, well, if they're really just trying to tear this down, why? That means that you have to tear down a lot of other things about the world itself. You know what I mean?
My question is, so when kids ask, how come the black people were slaves? What are they gonna say?
They're gonna say, "Don't." They're
Lost
not
a
allowed
coin
to.
flip?
No, they're gonna say, "You mean indentured servants?" Is that what you mean? Literally, that's what they start calling that shit. Apparently, isn't that right in Texas?
Indentured servants.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Even though they're completely two different things.
But the thing
You
is,
just paid a little bit.
it's so fucked up because like they literally just slip it into the textbook. Like when a kid is reading it, oh, they have indentured servants. What's that? Now they're defining it. Someone who has to work manual labor with that. They're not even putting the two together. So now it's literally just some shit they read. It's literally just a vocabulary word. Oh, indentured servants work without being paid, without being compensated or against your will type shit. It's like, fam, they're only gonna take it one way.
Like, if they do ban if they do ban critical race theory and stuff, like, can a kid get detention if he starts talking about it and starts educating his friends about it?
I don't think so. I just think teachers can't teach it. So maybe if a teacher tries to teach it, he can get like sued or something or fired.
That's fucking wild because kids are still gonna have so many questions. It's not like you only learn from school; you learn from your peers, and they're like your self concept is like based on the people around you. You know?
Yeah.
And that's the fucked up part is you got parents that are probably happy about the shit. Like, we don't want our kid learning about that shit. Like, America's a beautiful country. Like, there's probably parents that's like, because school is for like some people. If say you coming up in like a racist household, I wouldn't want my kid learning about that shit. Like. What goes down, because I don't want him to have thoughts about this doesn't sound entirely right. Like, no, I'm trying to brainwash him into my religion of racism.
This will be detrimental to kids like growing up because now they're gonna sound even more ignorant than they already do.
Yeah, the education system is it the same way how they didn't teach us how America treated Native Americans.
Yeah,
for the longest time, we're just like, yeah, you know, they had a kickback together,
yeah,
and like now they don't
Trail
exist.
And we came up at a good time where like for us, I feel like we learned a lot about the Native Americans. Even like we read stories about, like, even elementary school and shit, read hella stories about Native Americans. We knew like, oh, it's Native Americans, not Indians, because Indians come from India. Doesn't make sense. Christopher Columbus was stupid, right?
Yeah, dumbass.
And he's a piece of shit, tear down all the monuments. But it's fun, like people, like my mom was telling me, like growing up, yeah, like they weren't teaching us that type of stuff. Like they weren't telling us about the Native Americans. And she tried to say it respectfully, and she says, yeah, the Native American Indians. Then I'm like, oh, you don't need to say both, because one is the proper one. But isn't it? Because Native American, you're supposed to, because they're Native Americans. They weren't Indians, Native American Indians. I'm like, no, Mom, Indians, the reason he called them that, this motherfucker thought he was in India. But he wasn't. They're just Native Americans because he was in America. And then here we are.
Yeah, there's too many layers to this shit. That this type of a law will freaking. You can't reconstruct the books in that way because there's so many people already who learned about it. And kids have the fucking internet to go to.
Ooh, I have a question.
John Green, about to educate them niggas, bro.
Should the players who like the Texas Legends, Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, right? Those are bitches all in Texas, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of bad geographically.
Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, all in Texas.
So with all the stars we know that have come from there, let's just keep it basketball.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there should be more involvement in like shit like this, like more awareness being brought? Like you got people like Dirk, you got people like Tim Duncan, all the big motherfuckers from David Robinson's not as big. James Harden. Do you feel like they should be bringing more awareness to what's happening in their state, or a state that is they're beloved by?
I know you say you want to keep it basketball, but Texas is a huge football state.
Oh,
so
okay.
If they really want an athlete to do something, it has to be a football player. So let's probably like Dak Prescott or Deshaun Watson before the allegations.
But not even necessarily like specifically like, oh, do something, or because obviously like you can't really control the Bills, but at least like even spreading awareness, because if
LeBron would not let that shit happen. If this happened in California, LeBron would definitely say some shit about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like it is interesting. I sometimes wish people would ask them about this stuff, like when they're doing their interviews, like, did you hear about this bill passed in Texas? I know you're loved there, like, and you have a bunch of fans there. I just wonder if you knew about it. Like,
I don't think that they're obligated to speak on it, but yes, it would be more powerful coming from the people who were born there. Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, you can't just be like, but I do like your point of, if an interview asks them about that, and hopefully they do have knowledge about it, and they could, like, spread more awareness towards that. But I don't know. I can't be like, yo, man, why the fuck you ain't talking about this? You need to. You from here. It's like, it's a little tough.
To be completely honest,
The basketball players.
like, we talk about race a lot.
Yeah.
We talk about race a lot.
And whatever that sound is for sure. It's picking up in the head. Is it the fan?
Okay.
Is it because the fan, or is there someone else?
Someone else.
outside.
Oh, okay. Okay, it's gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm saying, as much as we talk about race, like, what clear objective goal are we looking for?
Like us as a podcast?
No.
Oh, okay.
The education.
Yeah,
I'm saying like, or I guess because black people, because I guess when we talk about critical race theory, it highlights African Americans, and that's something that it highlights.
Yeah.
Another thing, well, I'm not gonna. I'll say that later, but it highlights that, right? But like we talk about on the pod, we talk about black and white, right? And again, why are we talking about all this race? And it's like, not like, well, guys, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
Well, right now, if we're talking about this one, we're talking about them trying to suppress the notion that our nation is found on slavery and that the Constitution is rooted in racism. So talking about this one because we're seeing them try to shun a message or shun a truth that's just been pretty well known and pretty documented.
So what that does is it fucks up our timeline in our head as black people, because we're going to keep reminding ourselves, oh no, we'll talk about the slavery in America, not knowing that we are much bigger than the slavery in America.
So you think it's good that they're banning it?
I mean, there's good and bad to everything. Like, I guess the awareness to say like, here's the issues that, I don't know. Actually, no, fuck that shit. I think that's bad, honestly. I don't think that you should remind, like, I hate seeing a slave movie every 3 or 4 years.
I feel about that.
No,
I still haven't seen 13 Years
But
a
you don't
Slave.
think kids should learn about the history of the country?
When you are 7 years old and there's somebody reminding you.
What about high school?
If you are in high school and you are trying to have, I guess, the best, okay, think about the imagination, right? Whatever's in your head. But every time I go to school, I have to learn about, or each month I have to learn about how I was in chains. That's not happy to me.
Did you feel like that was your reality when you were in high school? Like each month you had to learn about being in chains?
I don't think kids will even look at it like that because
we learned about Native Americans like a motherfucker, and that I'm glad I know about what happened with Native Americans and how the country was formed. Because back then they were shunning that shit. Like, nope, that shit didn't happen. It's like if they try to put some shit in there, like, nah, we're not talking about the Holocaust no more. It's like,
yeah,
that's for a reason. You don't want people, and they're like, we don't want the people to believe that certain people are targeted in the past. Like, but fam, that's what happened. Like, you just don't misinformation. I don't know.
On a society level, cool. On an individual projection of like what I see for you in this life, why would I want to remind you of how you were a slave in chains, or remind you of your short timeline in America, and just keep telling you to focus on your timeline in America as a person of color?
Well, it's not for the black person per se. It's for everybody else.
And it's not just slavery, it's all types of systematic stuff. So when you're a kid growing up in a certain area, I think that people do need to understand why things are a certain way and what factors are at play and what factors have limited the black community. Because a lot of people, they try to just turn their back to it. Like, nah, I don't know, they're lazy, they're this and that. And like, they just have notions. They refuse to admit that there's been systematic things, historic systematic things that hurt the black community, that hurt the Latino community. So it's like, for those people, I feel like they are the ones that are thrilled. That's like, yeah, good, stop talking about it. Like, or they're just not seeing it because people just are oblivious to things.
Are you not promoting the problem more than you are creating a solution?
I mean, education, I would never think that educating yourself on the factors that are dampening people's lives and that are harming people's lives, I would never say like, nah, we shouldn't hear about that shit, because then you're gonna think about it. It's like, well, change needs to be made. So I'm trying to make that change once I grow older. Like, I'm trying to fix things and change people's lives in that regard, because I see the things that are the factors that are at play. People shouldn't just grow up in a box thinking like wherever they're living at is just life. Like, they should understand this is the history of the country. This is why things are the way they are. You shouldn't look in the mirror and look at your pigment a different way because they wanted you to do that shit. They wanted you through this and that. But I do see what you're saying, because a lot of people do talk about us constantly harping on slavery as opposed to harping on the fact that we had African kings and queens that were extremely powerful. They went to I forgot the king's name, but they went to Rome. They had a battle with I'm not a historian, so I'm gonna fuck this up, but they went to almost went to war with Rome, and Rome, the big ass civilization, turned them down. African king, I forgot what the king's name was. Kendrick rapped about him. They said, nah, we don't want smoke. So it was a very powerful nation.
This might sound ignorant as fuck.
Emperor.
Was it King Tut?
Damn, no.
That's a fucking pharaoh, huh?
Yeah.
They wouldn't teach you that in school.
Yeah.
About the Egyptians?
No, they don't do that either. But they wouldn't teach you about a black king that took on Rome.
So maybe there needs to be more history that's put in schools.
But will that ever happen?
No. No. So I think, I feel that, because a lot of people make that they talk about, they don't talk about that history, and by us constantly learning that we were slaves, it does dampen your. I mean,
It's
you
a
were
whole
kind of talking
consciousness
about it.
thing. Like your consciousness is seeing how you are a slave and not
So-
something greater than that. Like way above. Like okay, if you believe black person was the first person or huge person in the world. That means we was here first then, right? If you would take that logic, so that means we taught you motherfuckers shit.
And that's why I feel like there needs to be more education. Like we need to get the full story. It can't just be because I've heard it from a lot of people, and it's true in terms of like how it the cognitive type stuff it does. But I feel like you are someone who's talked about how you've overcome it in a way of like you don't let things like that hold you back. But I feel like it's because you're not sitting here. I mean, everyone has to overcome different things in terms of having the mindset of knowing what you were, knowing the history and stuff like that. But you also know the full history, and the people that know the full history are usually the ones telling you like, nah, man, we were this, we were that, we shouldn't be. And I feel like people got to get educated on that. Like people just got to get the full history. But now it's like they're just trying to erase all the history. Like, nah, there was no racism. Y'all here. It was a good time. Y'all took the tram.
So are they taking Martin Luther King like out the book? Is that what they're doing?
No, they just basically don't want any acknowledgement of any systematic type racism or any like foundation of America to be found in racism.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Don't hate
That doesn't
So-
make any fucking sense.
But you know what Texas is though? Fucking, I know there's a lot of black people in like Houston, different parts, but there's hella rednecks. Motherfuckers got the American flag in their back windshield. They probably America don't speak badly on All Beauty or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Like,
But what does a critical
Oh,
race
Lord.
theory lesson look like? Oh,
I
thought
was,
you was
like
out.
something was falling.
So, we're getting out.
all right.
You guys, since it's your first drive today, take the 210 East, 15 North, the end.
Text me. Okay.
You guys let me know when I get on the road, okay?
Mhm.
Let me know when we land. All of y'all got my numbers, y'all parents know where y'all going,
Yeah.
okay? All right, stay in touch.
All right.
Drive
Thank you,
safe.
love you.
I'll make sure he doesn't speed. I'm gonna make sure.
He gonna be asleep.
Somebody gotta stay away from the driver.
I'm up.
Yeah, we'll be up.
All right.
I'm
Keep
at,
saying
we'll be up all right. I'm gonna have a beer.
Yo, what's the difference between systematic and systemic? Because you keep saying systematic, and I keep reading
I think
systemic. Is it the same shit?
I think it's like tomato.
Yeah,
Okay,
I want
okay.
to say we'll just leave it on that. I was gonna like look it up, but it probably is.
Not, oh yeah, I'll just.
But
leave it.
you were no. I kind of wanted to. I got
No.
curious because I hear both though. That's why I think you can use them interchangeably. But you were saying, what does the lesson look like? That's the thing. Like I do feel like I remember seeing it in textbooks, but I feel like the biggest thing is like, it's not even just the theory. It's just like we don't want because so many things fall under that umbrella of like that that certain systematic things have been present. That's all we talking about. Present in all these things. They're like no. No, it wasn't present in any of this shit. Like, don't say the Constitution is rooted in racism. Don't say there's no racism in the country, boys.
The fuck out of here.
I just think critical race theory is important because
Just-
if you're a non-black person and you just grew up around white people and the only thing you know about black people is from what you see in the media, you're gonna think, how come all these black people are just criminals and stuff? Like, how come they're always committing these
Thugs.
crimes, they're all violence and they're thugs and stuff like that? Like, but if you learn critical race theory, you'll learn that, oh no, they were pushed to being this certain way. Like, they were forced into ghettos. They were forced to break the law in order to take care of their families. They were laws made that directly targeted black people. Oh, what shit you like? Do you like to just post up with your homies and chill? Oh, that's loitering, illegal. Oh, you like to smoke weed? That's illegal. Like, shit like that. Like, if you don't teach these in school, non-black people, because black people know this. Like, because if you're African American, like I'm not African American. I'm African. I'm first generation American. So my parents didn't really, they told me these things, but they don't have a first-hand account. But if you're African American, you know these things because your family tells you. But if you're not African American, how are you supposed to know unless the schools teach you? Like, it's the government's job, the school's job, to make sure that the masses know certain things they should know. And I feel like it's important to know these things because it's something that affected the entire community of Americans for a long, long, long time. And if you don't know why and in the certain situations they are, you're just going to be in a bad place because you're not going to take them seriously. You're not going to understand their struggle and things like that.
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, that's
No, I don't know. So like you.
Oh.
I'm just letting my mind wander. So
Oh, no.
what they should teach about the FBI pushing drugs through the community.
Yeah, they should.
Okay.
But they won't. They should,
Right.
though.
I'm saying the government's gonna teach
No,
how the
no,
government
that's
fucks
what-
up.
that
They're gonna
stuff
teach
is
about
like-
the shit like.
because they're not gonna talk about J.P. Morgan fucking coke and shit.
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
in. So it's
yeah.
like no shit like that because that stuff is technically conspiracy. It's true. But it's like they're not gonna be sitting there teaching. So here's what the government's done.
Yeah. And how far do you go? Especially when it's like, no, the government did this. Like you said, Jim Crow laws. Like, here's what we did. Look, you know, like, and here's what we did to the Japanese. Here's what we did to the Chinese.
And
here's what we did to the Native Americans. Here's what we did to everybody that lives here. The Mexicans, kicked them out.
And bro, but honestly,
Killed them.
You know when I talk about this like Jim Crow shit, when I talk about like Reconstruction, 1865, bro, that shit is from class. To be honest, like Miss Goldstein.
No, she
Shout out to Miss Goldstein.
Thickums.
Never mind, I ain't gonna say nothing.
That was your little nickname for her?
But
Thickums?
Thickums.
Thickums? Nah,
Yo, thick
that's
ass.
probably a nickname for herself.
Was your dad?
Nah.
She was
I was about to. She got that wagon, but I was like, let me just.
She was
chill.
that new young teacher, right? That came like right before we left.
Yeah, but okay. Anyways,
All right,
though,
anyway.
she taught a lot about like history like that, and like, but she was also Hispanic. I know her last name was Goldstein because her husband was Jewish, but she was Hispanic, and she grew up like around. You could tell like she was just wasn't someone that like she grew up seeing shit.
She wasn't
like,
like she knew how to approach race in a way that wasn't you know distasteful, but you also knew that she knew what she was talking about and she's seen it. You know, she's lived within it enough to teach you about it in a high school class.
She
you know,
grew up
but-
around Hispanic
yeah,
and black
yeah,
people and shit
yeah.
like that.
She
said,
did it. She did it.
my friends lived in Compton, because we had a game out there. Because I was like, man, we gotta go to Compton. I'm thinking because it's a long ride. She's like, so what? My friends live out there, so I'm like, it's fucking 2 hours, bro.
She
like
was trying to flex on you that she had some gangbangers.
Yeah, I
in
know
her.
she thought because other people were
in
like,
the tux.
bro, you know what I mean? Yeah, she thought I was saying like I don't want to go to. We're playing a basketball game, dog. What? Nigga, we shoot up a basketball
We
game?
win the game, they get mad, shoot us up.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like that. What's that one movie
Untuck
where
their
like they're at the
jerseys.
park and they say, "Fuck, I'm gonna get my gun," and they just start, is that White Man Can't
Is
Jump?
that called Reseda Park?
For real, that's exactly what it is.
Girl, I'm off the drugs right now. I could use your love right now, but they steady trying to tear me down. I just wanna tell you now, you could be my man.